Hey, what's going on, everybody? So, I decided to make another video here. Topic I did want to cover just because it kind of, I mentioned it or brought it up when I was making my video for the for my radiator install. But I just wanted to talk about registering a right-hand drive car in the United States because it can be, I don't know, it can be a lot easier or a lot more difficult depending on what your expectations are. So I did want to talk about it just a little bit about my experience to kind of maybe walk you through it a little bit as someone who's done it successfully once and if kind of in the middle of somewhat successfully doing it a second time. So right now, I actually have two right-hand drive cars. I have my R32 Skyline, which is right now fully registered and titled in Florida. Originally, I titled it in Tennessee because that's where I was stationed at the time when I first bought it. But then I switched it over to Florida, which is my state of residence. So both of those were actually really easy. Well, fairly easy. There were some hoops I had to jump through, but it wasn't that hard. But I'm currently here in Texas trying to do the same thing with my FD RX-7, running into a few issues just because there's some minutia about the way Texas does things. So that's what I'd say. So step one is look at your state, in particular what their individual laws and regulations are, because a lot of what I'm going to talk about is going to vary state to state. Furthermore, it's going to sometimes it can vary county to county depending on your state as well. So one thing I will say is if your state or county has an emissions test, then I would almost say, well, I don't want to dissuade you, but you would be very, I think it would be very hard pressed to get a imported right-hand drive car to pass U.S. admissions. As a matter of fact, I don't think you could get an FD to do it. Maybe an R32, maybe, but just the way they're built, I don't think you could get them to pass an admissions. Technically, because they're older than 25 years, they should be exempt from admissions, and I'll talk about that here in a minute with the paperwork that you should get. But some states, California, for instance, regardless, will make you to try. Will have you smog the car. For if you talk to anyone who's tried to do it in California, especially with folks who are trying to register R32s in California, and now even R33s, it's a lengthy, expensive process to try to do it in California. It can be done, but and I can't speak to the all the finite details about that. It can be done, but it's expensive and it's lengthy. That's why the people who have completed that process successfully and titled their cars in California, a lot of times when they go to sell them, they'll charge a lot more because they've already jumped through all those hoops. So, the other thing I would say, so number one, like I said, check with your state and find out specifically what your state and county laws are as far as importing cars, because it's different depending on where you live. Number two, I would recommend working with a importer who has experience with this. Trying to import it yourself, here again, I know people who have done it, but to save yourself the headache, just go with a importer who has a lot of experience with this. So that way you're going to get all the paperwork that you need. I got both my cars from Phase 9 Motorsports. I will go ahead and include their link in the description here. But I've worked with Franz and his team a number of times from Phase 9, and it's always been very helpful, always been a very really easy process. So, but like I said, just make sure you go with an importer who has experience with this, a reputable importer who has experience with this. So, like I said, you get all the paperwork that you need, so you don't get the runaround. Okay, so what you will need though, you're going to get a couple things, or you should get a couple things. So, number one, you're going to get a certificate of export, right? Japanese cars don't have titles in the same way that we have titles. But what you are going to get is a certificate of export, which serves or functions as the title, right? Oops, sorry, that was upside down. But anyway, but this serves as the title. Now, if you notice, it's all in Japanese, right? So what you should get along with that is a translated version. And so if you work with a good reputable importer, they should give you a translated version along with it. If not, you can always do like an online translator service and just upload the document and then they'll translate it. But the thing is, you need a translated version of this, is because when you take it to the DMV, they're going to look at you like you're crazy. So you're going to need the export certificate, and then you're also going to need the translated version of it. If you work with a good dealer, good importer, they should already give that to you. So hang on to this though, because like I said, this is this serves as the title until you can get it titled in the United States. Now, the other sort of issue that you're going into is obviously Japanese cars don't have the same type of VIN that we have, right? It's going to start out with BNR32, which is the chassis model, right? And hence the name R32 or R33. And then a sequence number after that, which is essentially the car's serial number, for lack of better words. Just like my FD is FD3S, and then a bunch of letters. That's what I call an FD. Versus an FC would be FC3S, blah blah blah. But a lot of times DMVs are going to look at you weird because the VIN number is not going to be able to fit into their system. So you're just going to have to explain to them, look, that's the VIN number. It's a foreign car, it's an import car, it's a different VIN number because it's not going to fit the standard US VIN number. You also are going to need some EPA paperwork. So basically, you're going to need this form 7501, which is basically a customs entry document. And then the other thing you're going to need that's really important is this MS, I think it's MS7, which is a declaration basically saying that the car is older than 25 years old and is exempt from emission standards. So, like I said, these two documents should come with all the paperwork if you go with a reputable importer. This declaration, so like the MS7, like I said, is really important because it basically says like I said, the car is older than 25 years and that by federal law should be exempt from emission standards. But like I said, just bear in mind some states don't even care about that because their own personal regulations say that regardless, it still has to pass emission standards. So anyway, so this is the MS7, which is that declaration, and then there's another EPA form. This is EPA form 3520-1, which basically covers that as well. So it's really important that you have those. And like I say, your importer should provide those to you. In Tennessee, registering my Skyline was really easy. I just had to take the paperwork over, just like anything else. For whatever reason, they wanted me to take a picture of the VIN number and have that with me when I went and registered it, but it wasn't that hard. Florida just wanted to visually inspect the VIN number when I went to register it. It wasn't that hard. Texas, so for those of you who live here in Texas are familiar, Texas does have a inspection. Well, so Texas, number one, Texas is one of those states where it varies county to county on whether or not you need to do a smog test on your car. Here in Bexar County, you don't have to, which is good. But you do have to get the car inspected at a state-sponsored inspection agency. I thought that's all I had to do, so I took it down the road to the mechanic shop that did it. Took all that paperwork to the DMV, but as it turns out, because it's a imported car, that inspection is not good enough. So I need something what's called a 68 Alpha, which is a law enforcement inspection of the car. So I had to schedule that specifically at the DMV. And here in Bexar County, they only do it at one place, and they only do it, I think, maybe one time a month or something like that. I got an appointment to do it like a couple months from now, unfortunately, because it was booked that far out. But nevertheless, so just kind of be aware of that. Sometimes you might run into, just check to see whatever your state requires in terms of VIN inspection and things like that. Some do it, some will have it. Well, I would say the overall theme, I think just about any state I've gone to, is that you have to have some type of form verifying the VIN number that you can get like law enforcement to sign off on it. Florida was really easy. Tennessee was really easy. But for whatever reason here in Texas, so for instance, in Florida and Tennessee, I just like walked into the police station and had them do or asked them to do it, and it was no big deal. When I was out in California, this wasn't for my Skyline. This was when I still had my 71 Mach 1. I had to do the same thing. But I just had to call the CHP, and they did it like once a week or something like that. It wasn't that big of a deal. But here in Texas, for whatever reason, I walked into the police station here in town, and they're like, "No, we don't do that. We only do it at this one place." And like I said, unfortunately, they only do it so many times. So just kind of, it's just some hoops you got to jump through. It's not terrible, but it just kind of is what it is. So, like I said, I would just, my words of advice kind of going forward is, so number one, just be familiar with what your state and your county's regulations are in terms of registering and importing cars, because it might not even be possible. So just kind of be aware of that, or it just might be so. Like California, where it's possible, but it's so cost and time prohibitive that like it's really not worth it. So be careful about that. Number two, make sure you go with a good, reputable importer. If you do, they will know what to do. They'll make sure you have all the required paperwork, so you don't have to worry about that. And then number three, like I said, make sure you have all your required documents. Make sure you get all your required documents, your declaration, your EPA statements, your export document, things like that. Make sure you have a translated version of your title. And then lastly, to some degree, you're going to have some entity inspect your VIN. Just take a look and see what your state requires for that, or what processes they have in place for that, because sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult than you would think. So anyway, if you have any questions or anything, by all means leave comments down below. Like I said, it's not hard. At the end, try not to get frustrated with it. At the end, it will work out. And then once you get it, once you get it titled in the United States, you don't have to go through this one time, because once you have a U.S. title, then it's fine, and it's really not that big of a deal. But initially, just some hoops you got to jump through. So, all right, everybody, have a good weekend.